Tallahassee just slammed the door in your face. The 2026 Florida legislative session is officially over. And if you were even looking for a single penny of property tax relief, you didn't just get a no. You got a total, absolute, 100% failure. Out of the dozens of proposals, from total abolition of non-school taxes to higher exemptions for seniors to logical fixes for portability and transparency, not a single property tax relief bill made it to the governor's desk. Not one. I'm here today because I am furious on your behalf. In this video, we're breaking down a session of legislative negligence that defies belief. We're going to look at how the House of Representatives performed a multi-million-dollar piece of political theater, passing bills they knew were dead on arrival because they didn't have the political foresight to draft a bill that the Senate could actually support. We're going to talk about why the Senate was forced to say no to protect rural infrastructure and why the House is solely to blame for the failed basic math of this state. And to make it even worse, while they were busy posturing for headlines and failing to lower your taxes, they also failed at the one job they are constitutionally required to do. They didn't even pass a state budget. The House wanted $115 billion. The Senate drew the line at $112 billion. Neither side blinked. 60 days, $3 billion apart, no deal. Hey, stick around because you need to know exactly how they let you down and, more importantly, what a real solution would have looked like. I've got a list of names in the pinned comment that you're going to want to remember when the election season starts. Let's look at the wreckage. This session wrapped up on March 13th, 2026. It was a graveyard of homeowners' rights. The House floor was a parade of false hope. We saw dozens of proposals: HJR 201 for total abolition, HJR 203 for a 10-year phase-out, HJR 205 for relief for seniors over 65, HJR 211 to fix the broken Save Our Homes portability, and HJR 213 to slow down assessment growth. Every single one died. Then there's the HOA and Condo crisis. House Bill 657 was a massive 85-page Bill of Rights designed to create specialized courts and finally give you a way to dissolve a corrupt board. It passed the House with a staggering 108-2 vote. That's not a partisan vote. That's the entire Florida House of Representatives telling you this was a crisis. And the Senate still wouldn't hear it. Not a single committee hearing. The momentum of a freight train stopped cold. And zoning, while they couldn't find a way to lower your cost of living, they sure found time to pass two bills that made it easier for developers to build high-density projects on contaminated brownfields and government land. They're clearing the way for new construction, but they aren't doing a thing to make sure you can afford to stay in the home you already have. There was only one win worth noting: SB 1293, which makes it a felony to use forged documents to occupy a rental. That's a genuine defensive win for property rights, but a no squatters bill doesn't pay the property tax bill that's due in December. Here's the number that tells you everything: $23.5 million. That's all it takes to keep Hardee County running. Roads paved, sheriff on patrol, lights on. The entire House of Representatives could not solve for $23.5 million. Remember that. Now, let's get to the spine of this failure: the death of property tax relief. The House of Representatives, led by Speaker Daniel Perez, spent months posturing. They passed HJR 203, which proposed elimination of non-school property taxes. On paper, it looked like a partial win. But this was a math problem with no solution from the start. House leadership didn't send the Senate a policy. They sent them a headline so they could go home and tell you, hey, we tried, but the Senate said no. The House plan would have cost local governments a combined $18.3 billion a year. But it would have hit rural counties the hardest. It would have been absolutely devastating. We have to be fair to the Senate and the rural counties here. They aren't the enemy. Senate President Ben Albritton represents Wauchula, a rural district in Hardee County. His constituents legitimately rely on homestead property taxes to fund their entire existence: the roads, the police, the fire departments, and the schools. When Albritton looked at the House plan, he said no. He wasn't objecting, he was doing his job. Look at those numbers. In Orange County, eliminating homestead property tax cost them about 3.2% of their total budget. Orange County has a diversified revenue stream: the tourist development tax, massive commercial sectors, and utility fees. Florida DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, identified $199 million in potential savings specifically in Orange County. That means Orange County could basically absorb the cut just by trimming waste alone. But now look at Hardee County. They levied $23.5 million in property taxes just to keep the lights on and the roads paved. That's 16% of their whole budget. In neighboring DeSoto County, property taxes make up nearly 24% of total county revenue. Now, you compare a 3% cut to a 16 or 24% cut, one is a manageable adjustment. The other, lights out. If you take away the homestead taxes in Hardee County, you're asking them to hike taxes on local small businesses and renters by up to 70% just to keep the sheriff's deputy on the road. There is no tourism industry. There is no skyscraper commercial district. There's nothing to fill that gap. The Senate looked at the House and asked the logical question: how do you pay for the rural infrastructure and services if you take this money away? And the House had nothing. No revenue replacement, no sales tax swap, no state grant program to bridge the gap for fiscally constrained counties. Not a single viable alternative was offered in the bills that actually moved. They sent the Senate a bill that would essentially bankrupt half of the state's counties, and then acted shocked when the Senate rightfully refused to take it up. Let me know in the comments if you think the House should have done the planning before sending the Senate a bill they couldn't pass. Some of you are asking, what about that total abolition bill, the one with replacement funding and the 5% exit fee? Representative Ryan Chamberlain filed that nuclear option. It proposed a constitutional amendment to remove the authority of counties and school districts to levy property taxes, period. To fund this, Chamberlain filed the Freedom, School, and Safety Revenue Replacement Act. This would have increased your state sales tax from 6% to 9% and added a new 5% surtax on every single property transaction. On a $500,000 home sale, that's a $25,000 hit every time a house changes hands. Think about what that means: a 50% increase in your sales tax on every grocery run, every hardware store visit, every back-to-school shopping trip. The families who would have benefited the most from property tax relief, working-class homeowners and renters, would have been hammered the hardest at the register. Was the revenue math there? Let's be honest, it was never properly vetted. The bill didn't even receive a single committee hearing. It was filed, got a first reading, and was buried in Ways and Means. The House leadership didn't even try to build a coalition for it. They let it sit while they focused on the phased-out headline grabbers. They knew the Senate would kill them anyway. They didn't want a solution. They wanted a talking point. And it wasn't just the big bills. They let every single senior and transparency measure die too. HJR 211, which would have uncapped the $500,000 limit for Save Our Homes portability, was left for dead. This would have finally unlocked the market for empty nesters who want to downsize but are trapped in their current home by the massive tax increases they'd face on a new one. HJR 205, the bill to give seniors over 65 meaningful relief, dead. HB 215, which would have let newly married couples pool their homestead tax benefits, dead. And the most inexcusable, SB 856, a simple transparency bill. This would have required real estate websites to show buyers an estimate of their future tax bill instead of displaying the current owner's artificially low rate. No revenue replacement needed, no rural impact, just the truth. And they couldn't even pass that. The absolute peak of this failure is the budget. The Florida Constitution requires the legislator to pass a balanced budget every year. It's their one constitutionally mandated job, and they didn't even do it. The House wanted $115 billion in spending. The Senate drew the line at $112 billion. That's a $3 billion gap on a budget measured in the hundreds of billions, less than 3% apart. And neither chamber could find a way to close it in 60 days. They were so busy bickering and posturing that they missed the deadline entirely. Now they have to come back for a special session in April just to finish the work we've already paid them to do. House Speaker Daniel Perez called it a fundamental disagreement over spending. But to the homeowner watching their assessment climb while Tallahassee plays chicken, it looks like pure, simple incompetence. They had 60 days to close the gap, 3%. They failed. In just a moment, I'm going to tell you what a real solution could have looked like, and I'm going to name the people responsible. Don't go anywhere. Here's what the policy analysts and, frankly, basic math agree on. There was a viable path forward. It just required the House to actually do the work. A realistic compromise bill could have looked something like this. Step 1, partial exemption increase. Instead of a full elimination of non-school property taxes, phase in a targeted increase to the homestead exemption, say from $50,000 to $100,000 or some other acceptable number, for primary residents only. That's meaningful relief without blowing a hole in rural budgets. Step 2, a state grant bridge program. Create a fiscally constrained county relief fund, funded from Florida's current multi-billion-dollar budget surplus, to reimburse the rural counties dollar for dollar for lost homestead revenue during this transition period. This is how you protect Hardee County without sacrificing Orange County homeowners. Step 3, fix portability now. Pass HJR 211 as a standalone. Uncapping the Save Our Homes portability limit costs the state almost nothing and immediately unlocks the housing market for seniors and empty nesters. There was zero legitimate reason for this one to die. Step 4, pass that transparency bill. SB 856 costs absolutely nothing. It just lets buyers know the truth. Pass it, put it on the governor's desk, and give homeowners at least one win they can point to. Was this the historic abolition the House promised in January? No, but it was achievable, defensible, and it would have put real money back in homeowners' pockets before the November tax bills arrived. Instead, they chose the headline over the homework. Senate President Ben Albritton says that they'll return in April to put meaningful option on the ballot. Mark your calendar, the special session is expected to begin April 22nd. But here's the question you need to be asking. Why didn't they do this during the 60 days they were actually in session? That laser focus they claimed to have was clearly pointed everywhere but putting money back in your wallet. This legislature had the chance to be historic. Instead, they left you with HOA boards that are out of control. They left you with zoning preemptions that will put high-density apartments next to your single-family home. And they left you with a tax bill that only moves in one direction, up. Tallahassee failed. The House failed to plan. The Senate watched the clock run out. And you are going to pay for it, literally, when your November tax assessment arrives. Your tax bill for this year is already written. The only question is whether the people who wrote it are still in office next year. Check the pinned comment. I've listed every key legislator who was in the room when your relief died, their name, their district, and exactly what they failed to do. Look them up. Find out if they represent you, and remember them in November. We're not done watching. Coming up, the HOA Betrayal. Why HB 657 died and what it means for your board's unchecked power right now. The zoning takeover. How SB 1434 and HB 1389 will change your neighborhood's density, possibly overnight. Special session watch. We'll be live tracking the April talks. Will they be putting a real tax cut on your ballot, or is this just more theater? Subscribe and enable notifications. They're counting on you to forget. Don't do it. Hey, this has been the Florida Real Estate Insider. I am still Tom McNamara. I'll see you in the next one.